It's definitely a hotbed for founders, for investors, and we've still not unlocked the complete potential of it. And obviously, with the Web3 wave coming in, there's so much that can be added to it. So I believe a lot of support from the government is needed at this point of time. And maybe we see some tweaks in the announcements which we have recently heard.
Okay, let's me go to Mr. Mohan. Mr. Mohan, I'll bring Vikram again into the conversation, but just before that, how do you see the Web3 and blockchain ecosystem? And do you think that founders should be bootstrapped or they should raise large amounts of money, because it's a long haul for, especially for Web3 kind of enterprises, because its adoption will take a while. You have to be deep pocket. The talent is of a certain value, so on and so forth. What are your views on this?
I'll start by saying that things are improving. Like when we started our journey, that was like 3 years back, we had to build a lot of things using our own money, or we need to bootstrap and kind of showcase like what we are talking about, because the Web3 does brings a lot of different things into the ecosystem. And the most fundamental thing is like it breaks down silos. So it breaks down silos and it gives control to the users. And these are two fundamental shifts that are happening. Now, these fundamental shifts can also bring in other aspects, because when you say you have control given back to the users, control ownership given back to the users, businesses still need to have a way to discover them and interact with them. So these are like new models that come in. But when you talk about technology, Web3 or blockchain or all pieces that kind of forms this solution, there's still gaps. There's still gaps, and that's where we kind of say that the adoption is growing slowly. In different places, those gaps are there. So as a company, when we started, we have to prove many of those things that we're talking about, like even the simple concept about reusable data, right? How do you make data reusable? How do you let user to derive value from the data that he created or he helped create, right? So yes, initially it was all about prototypes, and even today, yes, there need to be some level of investment from the founders initially, but I'll say things will change because we see it as like different layers getting enabled throughout the Web3 journey, saying that it is the infrastructure first or the core technologies first, and then we get to the layer of applications and services, because most of the funding stories that we hear is mostly about the stack on the top, which is about applications and services, which is touching the consumers as businesses and driving value out there. But those businesses, those applications are there because the fundamental layer is already there, right? So today, most of the core Web3 technology companies or blockchain companies are really focused on this foundation layers, so that when the story moves to the application layer, things becomes easier for the new founders to get support.
And Satish, let me ask you this, because I know what Parth's view, and I'll get Vikram. A lot of founders in the Web3 blockchain ecosystem are very young. They have no experience of governance. They've never ran a company. They have no credible track record. And they're dealing with lots of money.
Right.
Okay. And they're human, they're not. So what do you have to say to that? And I'll get Vikram's comment.
No, so my previous experience helps in some of these things that we are doing, because we've been through this journey or a similar journey.
But I met another blockchain founder. I'm an advisor to him, and he always comes dressed like Parth. He says, my valuation will go down if I wear a suit and all. He's very young. Anyway,
I'm also
you're wearing a suit and all. The valuation may go down.
I'm also not a suit guy, but I thought, okay, the conference is in Delhi and it's hosted by Businessworld. I expect like many people might be in suits. So this is not a comfortable thing for me as well.
Valuation is back.
So in terms of
next time we should do this in a swimming pool.
Web3
there is a floating restaurant in Bombay.
Web3 has those yacht parties.
Yes. I mean,
I'm happy
you got
are not happening in India.
Yeah, I've been invited but never showed up on one. But I don't have t-shirts like that.
So anyway, so we've seen a similar journey with open source, right? And maybe some of us in Dhive also been lucky enough to be part of that journey. And so we've been with open source ecosystem for almost like 20 years. And when it all started, it was like the response we used to get was like, why should I trust somebody else, the code written by somebody else to be part of my system, right? We saw the transition going from I don't want it to that's the default today, right? But it took almost like 20 years to get there, and at different phases. So we see that the same playbook happening on the Web3 side as well, where there are missing pieces. And the reason why the open source got that adoption is like companies stepped up and created those, or addressed those gaps by bringing in their solutions or their capabilities into the stack and kind of say, now it is usable, you can start building things, and it kind of brought in the confidence. So we definitely see Web3 also getting that kind of a support.
Vikram, you heard both Parth and Satish. What are your comments?
So I think you made a very good point. And the governance piece, especially, I think it's becoming more and more critical. It's a lot about the foundation and the value system of individuals. There is a human behavior involved. When you give too much money to someone who doesn't need that much, and then you put pressure on why that money is not being used, you will end up in a situation where the person is just using the money without much productivity on that money. And we've seen.
No. The founders are very wise. Instead of they've hired chartered planes, they saved time. They spent a couple of crores. That's it.
No, so we have
Clearly you're
situations.
not right.
We've seen situations like housing, for example, right? I mean, the company.
By the way, I wrote a piece on Rahul Yadav. I've never met him. I wrote it 6-7 years back. Rahul Yadav is the Rakhi Sawant of those days. Rakhi Sawant was there. I wrote Rahul Yadav is the Rakhi Sawant of startups. I wrote it 5-6 years back. You can Google it.
But
He's
by the
clearly
way-
proved me right.
No, it's interesting. But by the way, that was to me not a corporate governance issue. I think that was a human behavior issue to me, because I don't think he actually siphoned off the money. I think it was he in fact gave away whatever he had. Right? He just couldn't manage his board. He just couldn't do what collaboratively the team had to do. So
एक उर्दू में कहावत है, when I'll do it in English, कि इत्तेफाक भी इतने इत्तेफाक नहीं होते. Coincidences are not so coincident. It's happened with him in 2 ventures. Little different situation.
Yeah.
So there is something unique about him, I'll say.
No, I agree with you. I think the second issue is very different from the first one. But
In fact, I'm tempted to. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor is somebody that fascinates me. She got married 8 times. I was reading a piece in the Time magazine. I do read magazines. The back page, some 6-7 years back, I can't be. And there's a guy who writes a very funny column. I've forgotten his name. And he'd written, what is the name of the host on CNN who speaks? Dallas, you're my kind of guy I used to do the breakfast show, yeah. Larry King.
Yeah, Larry King.
Larry King was getting married for the 7th time. And he wrote a very funny piece. I mean, saying somebody who's got 6 times unlucky, if somebody else, he had 7 parking tickets, you won't give him a license or accidents. You're allowing him to marry. But that's what America is. In personal, professional, you fail at 2 ventures, you still get money for your 3rd venture. You think Rahul Yadav will be able to raise money for his 3rd venture?
No, of course. I mean, looking at what happened in, for example, Go Mechanic, right? I mean, if you look at that's, very clearly, it's a value system issue. I mean, you have a very different value system there.
For genuine